Now, if any of you have ever been to Lama Foundation, you've seen the bells, you've stood in front of them, you've rung the bells. And Ray from Lama, who is a pretty steady participant, sent these to me a few days ago. They're a fifth the size of the bells. The bells at the Lama Foundation that ring 4 or 5 times a day and remind people that there is a place where we're still paying attention to the holy everything. Anyway, it just blew my mind. I was like, what am I going to do with these? And then I started playing them, and it was just so fun. I thought, oh, that's what I'll do. I'll just start playing them. And then I thought, oh my God, there'll be people who've been at Lama. Raise your hand if you've been to Lama. Yeah, so a few of you have been there. But anyway, now you know what the bells look like. And the first one, which is for fires, was off the head of a hydrogen bomb from Los Alamos, just to let you know. And I'm not sure whether we still have the hydrogen bomb tip or not, but it was big and silver and came around like this. And it, boom, boom, you know, when it was rung, it's like it went up through your feet and into your deep, 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 deep belly. So,
Will you play a little bit more? I think we have a few more minutes until. Let
okay.
me check the time.
See if you can bring the sound of this bell into your belly, down into your belly, into your womb, behind your belly button, and then that whole area, make it warm. And now connect it to all the trees outside of your house, wherever you live, the closest trees to you. And then in the trees where the roots are, the mycelium, the incredible amounts of teensy weensy mycelium who have electricity going through them that nobody can quite record because it doesn't go in lines. Nobody's figured out quite how it works. But the mycelium carries messages from trees to trees to trees to plants to plants to plants to things that they want to eat, to the things that they want to eat, so that the way we've mucked around with the surface of our planet is so ridiculous because it was much better at it before. But there are really wonderful people now who are working with it. So this is a subject I'm extremely excited about. Welcome, everybody. Now I have to find out from Latifa what I'm going to do.
You want to start with a practice?
All right, let's drop in. Drop into this peculiar reality in which we're like a interplanetary whole. We're like a non-physical, physical compartment that we've come to by choice. It's so splendid. This is one of those places where if we don't show up or we do show up, it doesn't matter. That it's our whim that brings us here. It's nothing else but our whim, and we can come and we can go on any of them because we don't have like teachers and we don't have superiors, and we just have this mystery. What are we? What are we? Close your eyes. Find the beautiful nature of your living body, the fascia and all the nerves in the fascia, the vibratory field that's right at the edge of your skin and makes your skin so alive. And then as you begin to breathe a little bit deeply, move yourself into your heart just behind your sternum. And as you breathe in, feel your sternum caressed by your breath. Breathing in down to the bottom of your sternum and then breathing out the throat, maybe up out the top of your head. And then check your perineum and your whole bottom and move all that energy up into your, behind your belly button. Can you all hear? Is it loud enough? It's okay? Great. Amazing. So, in this place, when we're inside of our bodies like this and our minds are sort of loping along, doing whatever they're doing, having side thoughts or inside thoughts or no thoughts at all, or wanting to have something more interesting. I mean, there's 1,000 things that could be going on in just a few of us. But to surrender to the mystery of what Zoom itself is, because at a certain point it's going to end being the only place that we can meet, but it's not going to go away. And so if we can find those ways that it works to get, for example, for me to be able to see those of you who live far away from me, who I know and love, and those of you who I don't really know, even that, because I don't know if you know, but in the last 2 weeks, I was discovered that I had a tumor. I kept thinking it was in my chest or in my belly, even after I found out it was in my head. But it's right here in my left part, and they cut a big cut here, and then they reached in through the bones, and then they took out and made a kind of a hole in my left temporal lobe where a lot of words are, and especially some of your names. And so that's been just 2 weeks, but it's the main thing is that when I opened up my eyes and the room I was in, and nobody could be there. You know, after I'd been awake for 4 hours, one of my daughters was there, and she had to leave, and I didn't see anybody I knew for 3 days, really. But I when I woke up, and now I'm going to let myself do it while I'm looking at you. When I woke up, out of the middle of my heart, here, somewhere in here, there was this, maybe like a flower or something like that, but it wasn't physical. From the center place, there came this unbelievable but true me going outward, a kind of love that I didn't even know could exist. It was so big and so thorough, and it included all of you, but it included all the people on the planet, all the people who can't talk, who can't do, who don't love their families, who haven't been taken good care of enough, the people who do stupid things and hurt people, the people who lock up children and their mothers, or even do worse. The love is filling all of it for me. Is it true? I don't know if it's true. It's certainly a true experience that I've been having. And along with it goes enormous amounts of happiness that I can just turn on if I want to stop thinking about something that's important to think about, that I have to take away feelings and have to think. Okay, how many people want me to talk louder? Put your hands up. You got a couple? Yeah, they're not on my screen. Okay, is this okay? Is that better? That's good? Thank you. Okay, thanks, Mirabai. So I don't know how that happened, and I know that it's just like everything that's really spectacular in your life that you think, oh, this is going to be all my life. And then you get used to it and it becomes your being. And then it doesn't mean as much anymore. It's just like, oh, well, maybe I can help other people to love everybody. Anyway, I would like to encourage you today, if there's anything I could ask you to do, is to find a way. It doesn't mean you have to approve of anybody and what they do. You can have all kinds of values that are much better than other people's values. But that doesn't have to take the love away because it's the love that's going to make us into a human family. And as long as we're not loving everybody and just finding a new word, maybe, because love is such a big word and there are probably 150 words that we would have to make up to cover all the kinds of love there are. But I am talking about personal, human, divine love that comes out of your own heart and fills at least the planet, if not the universe. The universe being the one song. I've always loved that. We talked about the universe, but if we hear it as the one song as well as this, that which we see, what could be better? So that's enough gab. Tell me what else to do.
Well, what I thought, so everybody, we're sitting beside each other. My microphone is muted. Tell me if I need to talk louder. Um,
But Sarah, was that yes or is it loud enough or
can you hear me okay?
yeah?
You sound pretty far away, Latifa.
Do. Okay. Let's see how I can sound
but tolerable.
tolerable. Okay, that might be what we have to go with today. So, Asha, I thought what I'd do is continue to read from the front of your retreat book, your 40-day retreat book, where we left off last time, and then you could share some stories with us.
Yeah, I'm thinking of reprinting it yesterday because a friend came and she's taking it and going to show it to people so I don't have to spend 20 hours putting it together every time.
Oh, good. Oh,
So
good.
maybe it'd be cheaper too.
Okay, so this is from Asha's retreat book. A 40-day retreat I did in the winter of 1989 in a 10 by 12 cabin in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains near Charlottesville, Virginia. No running water, 30-minute walk to any people. After my mother's death, which took longer than she wanted, I returned home, talked my oldest daughter Dakota into shaving my head. She was reluctant, but kind enough to do it. Arranged for deliveries of food and art supplies and knot pickups every 3 days halfway up the mountain. Hauled water up to the cabin and rigged a rain gathering system. Asked our local saint to cut enough wood to keep me warm for 40 days and began my retreat. I shaved my head to try it out, to feel more like a monk, so that I would not have to wash hair. The biggest surprise was a distinct impression the cutting of my hair erased a large portion of my sexual history. So, what I'd like to do is share a picture from your retreat book, Asha, that I've been sharing before, and it's basically it's a timeline or a life review. This is the overall picture, and I'm going to zoom in just a moment. So if you're a little squeamish about like seasickness, you might want to close your eyes while I zoom in. But we're going to zoom in and look at the portion that we're going to talk about today. So last we talked, Asha had just finished Stanford, and we just got to the part where you were going to meet Richard Alpert, Asha, and um, and then you wanted to talk about the peyote, the 21 peyote buttons. But would you start with meeting Richard Alpert?
Well, I was at Stanford. I was a French freshman at Stanford.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I was studying psychology 101. He had just come from Harvard and was teaching there. And somehow I went into this little rolling trailer where he was correcting papers because I had a question. I can't remember even what happened, but whatever happened there, I think I helped him correct papers, and then we started having parties on Friday nights together. And that was when what's his name, the author and who made the movie about crazy psychedelics. We,
Alan Watts? No.
no, no, no,
Um,
no. But Alan Watts,
Ken Kesey.
yeah,
Ken Kesey. Thank
Kesey,
you.
yeah,
Ken Kesey.
thank you. But he and also Alan Watts and see, this little place in
Yeah,
my
it's the
brain,
name place.
Sausalito, where Varda was, and also his daughter Varda, who was Agnes Varda. It turns out I didn't know she was his daughter, but she's a great filmmaker. Anyway, he had a big boat, and Alan Watts lived on one side, and Yanko lived on the other, and basically all these people were interconnected. I mean, at that time there were only bohemians. It was pre getting big groups like who was the first one that Zoom. He wrote Zoom. You know the poet who wrote Zoom.
Somebody's going to have to help out here.
Allen Ginsberg or Lawrence Ferlinghetti.
No, it was Alan. Yeah,
Allen.
that group started something
I
called the Beatniks. I mean, we didn't call ourselves the Beatniks. It was Herb Cain who called it the Beatniks. But it was a group, and it was made up of intellectuals. It was made of rich people who were bored with being with rich people. It was made of poets, artists, and dancers, any kind of art people, and it was as close to a circus as you could get without selling yourself. The circuses you had to sell things, but it's like that free place that I am feeling so completely now that I love you all so much. I cannot tell you what a weird thing it is. Who could ever have suspected not having any walls? Yay, so fun. Anyway, so
So Ram Dass, you met him.
yeah, he was Richard Alpert. He
Right.
was a friend of I knew him, and then we knew him, and then he helped us eventually. I mean, we had a whole long life together, which just ended. Really, what last week? How long ago? A year? Well, how long ago did he look
Maybe
like?
a year or something like that. I don't remember exactly.
No, I mean we were close friends. He was part of Lama. A couple of times we were mad at each other.
You lived together for a while.
Yeah, we lived together with my husband, and he was trying to be in love with a woman named Jane, who was a philosopher. But they tried it for about a year, but he was going out every night finding men too, so didn't really count. But she was great, and we all took acid every Friday night. But before that, we had these parties at on Homer Lane in Stanford in a little tiny house, and we drank wine and had um, spaghetti and spaghetti sauce and red wine, and talked about whether you had to be neurotic to be creative, or whether you could be creative and neurotic at the same time. Really stuff like that. It was still, but that was when what's his name who had the psychedelics and the Hells Angels and was our neighbor when we lived in.
Ken Kesey.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah. Anyway, Kesey was in the hospital at that time making, experimenting before he wrote his book about that crazy nurse, which you've probably all
One
forgotten
flew
about.
over
But
the
anyway,
cuckoo's nest.
yeah. But anyway, Ram Dass is either you know who Ram Dass is or don't. But I knew him well for a while, and then I was at Lum, and when he came to Lum, I knew him, and then I moved to Virginia, which is completely different than anything west of the Mississippi, and Virginia just everything sort of shifted.
You wanted to tell us about the peyote buttons. Was it 21 or 12 peyote
Oh,
buttons?
after I graduated from graduate school at San Francisco State University. It's now university, it was just San Francisco State then. I went to Stanford and then I went to San Francisco State. I loved San Francisco State. It was people. You know, it was people. You could greet them and say hi. Whereas at Stanford, people would meet people and the whole judgment would be done within 5 seconds, you know. How smart is this person? What are they really interested in? How much money do they come from? How much money did they not come from? You know, do they have a good personality and what are they looking like? Whereas, like, looking at
Left the front door open.
huh? Looking at this Zoom, for example, I like that isn't the way I'm looking. I'm just looking at fellow humans, and that's the way it was at San Francisco State. You know, all these fellow humans, mystery. Each one of us a huge mystery.
Asha, what was the degree that you did, that you were in grad school for?
A teaching degree, and I ended up going to a continuation high school that had. I was 21. It had 18-year-old prostitutes, and it had boys who just gotten out of reform school, and it had a guy who wrote the song, "Do you want to dance? Do you want to dance? Do you want to?" He came to me, he said, "If I pay you $50," he had a white suit on, he looked very professional. And he said, "If I pay you $50, will you give me an A?" I said, "No, Bobby, I will not." But that was a great teaching for me, you know, teaching all those guys. You know, they knew a lot more about a lot more stuff than I did. Yeah, that was great.
So the peyote buttons.
Oh, the peyote. Oh, yeah.
You
Okay,
said that
so
was important to share.
it was because I was a normal person, smoking cigarettes, going to a bar nearby to, you know, have a glass of wine every afternoon when I was a clerk, and slowly moving into the art world. But there was a teacher at the school who I had no idea that he was interested in me, but I did want to see what it was like to try what 17 magazine had said, which is when you're with a man, maybe you should just not talk and good things would happen. So he took me out to lunch and I didn't say anything. I just listened to him for the whole lunch. And then I kept doing that for 2 weeks. And he was living with another woman and he proposed to me within 2 weeks. You know, I thought, well, that's what I learned about that. Just, you can hide from anybody, I guess. So I ended that relationship, though. Sort of dumb. But anyway, so the peyote, he gave me 21 peyote buttons. I'd never taken peyote. I didn't know anything about it. My best friend's, oh, now I remember why I wanted to tell it. My best friend's husband and I took 21 peyote buttons. I didn't know how many to take, but 21 peyote buttons is a darn lot of peyote buttons, you know. So we ground them up and we put them in pills. And I guess it was a rare thing to do at that point, rather. And they had 2 children who had diapers, you know, and were going to sleep. And she didn't like being around us very much because we were way out. You know, I was seeing the food we were eating as jewels that were coming through and little fantasies like that. So she left. And it was a very interesting evening, and I managed to take good care of the children, thank God. And but at a certain point, her husband was coming on to me, and I was lying there, and I was never like ripe perennially sexual. I was much more sexual if I was in love with somebody or had a crush on somebody than just the physical part of it. But anyway, we were, you know, in psychedelic electrical state of connection. And what I was seeing, vision, I think it was these 2 cells coming together like this. Can you see my hands? Yeah. Coming together really closely like this. And I realized that if they join together, like I don't even want to do it right now to join them together, that if they join together, this is the change I would have to do. I would have to look at my structure that was holding my ego and my selfness into a form, or I would have to look at my desire, which was this energetic flow of womb like energy coming through me. I would have to decide which of those to go with. And I realized this is my best friend's husband. Are you kidding? They have two children together. I love them both. Structure. So I immediately left my body.
Mm.
I had never left my body before that, and I've never left it since. But I went out the window, and then when I was out the window, I could look down and I could sort of imagine a funeral. And I decided, well, this isn't proper either. So I looked back, and my body was lying by itself on the bed. I don't know whether it was dead or alive. I don't know anything about after you die or bodied or unbodied. I don't care. But at that point, when I decided that I wasn't to have a funeral, I should get back in my, and instantaneously I was back in my body, and we were back in session, and that was over, and I had made my decision, and I learned a lot about moral decisions within the following hour, I believe it was, about how to really be able to decide. I'm only remembering this right now. I mean, I haven't thought of these thoughts I had afterwards, but I thought it was really important to clarify within my own consciousness who who is it who is making these decisions, because up until that point it had been Bibles and sermons and parents and teachers
Mhm.
and a lot of beautiful religious novels. You know, I mean, from the time of 12, I read a lot when I was a teenager, and I loved reading anything that was about God, you know, that was a novel. I didn't like philosophy nearly as much, but I loved novels about God. Wow. Anyway, so that was the part I wanted to tell you about the peyote. I took peyote afterwards. I went to peyote meetings with Indians. I really loved all that. I have, in the last 30 years, I haven't been interested in drugs particularly. You know, every so often I take a little grass or something, but it doesn't change me in the last 2 weeks since my heart dissolved and opened up into the universe. Well, I'm not used to it yet. So I'm just seeing how do I do it. And one of the ways I really want to do it is just to look at you guys and say how much you are so lovable and so loving, and to find the place inside of you that's loving, that maybe didn't get the love from the people who didn't know how to love you. You know, but they didn't know how to love you. It's not that they didn't have love inside of them. So I think that we can pull a little bit of love out of everybody we encounter. And that's what I'm trying to do. It's really, it's, it's not very sophisticated. You know, it doesn't have any sophistication to it at all. It's very naive and innocent and filled with faith. But the faith is an experience, it's not some kind of a guess. It's like a faith, oh, my solar plexus is always alive. You know, it's always really moving faster than my heart. But if I'm in a place that's really at ease, my solar plexus is populating my heart and being completely tamed by whatever this central channel of whatever it is. Okay, another question.
So this is kind of related to what you just talked about, but kind of not.
Louder.
Um, what do you think happens when you die?
Well, I know there's a little while, which I mean, I was with a lot of people who died and stayed with them for hours sometimes. Breathed with them, helped them breathe, helped them stop breathing. And the more I sat with them, the less I knew, the less ideas I had. For the first probably 50 of them, I'd walk down to the mortuary next to this thing. I'd open windows to let their spirits out if their spirits went out. And the more I did it, the more I realized, well, I don't know. I know that people that I love, I love. I don't stop loving them when they die. I just stop having a history,
Mm, mm,
you know. So the history stops,
mm.
but even sometimes that doesn't because you remember them with friends and they're but but I think it's a good question, but I I mean, we have thousands of stories about what happens and we have oh, I know I got hypnotized to find out about my lives afterwards and I had a lot of lives afterwards, but I realized I could just pull them out of history books, or I could have even put there may be history right in the air right here. There may be nothing that exists here except history, right? And so I could pull somebody's history, mine or somebody else's, out in my own head, and then say it as though it was my past life. How would I know the difference? I mean, what kind of what kind of mind is that kind of mind, or would even want to bother? So I don't know. I think life is fun enough.
So your answer is you don't know what happened. You
I
don't.
have no idea.
Okay.
I have a lot of ideas of what could happen, but everybody else has more, so I listen to them.
Well, will you share one or two of them? I'm really interested. I mean, I have my thoughts, but
Well, first you die, and then whatever your belief systems come in, probably, or if you have practices that you practice, because there's about, I think there's, if you're allowed, there's maybe 3 days of practice. The American Indians in the Pueblo Indians consider themselves dead in 24 hours. The Tibetans consider themselves dead in 49 days. So, da 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 da. For me now, 1 hour seems like 4 hours. I've already been with you guys for an hour, right? I mean, I just can't squeeze time together to be an hour anymore. So that's those are the times of death. Well, so there are all these stories about death. Well, I think we have stories, and we change those stories, and I haven't dreamt for a really long time, and I think it's fun, but I've never found it meaningful unless it was telling me when I was young, really important things. But would you ask me? I'm
well,
sorry.
what are some of your thoughts or your sense of when you die? What happens?
Well,
Not that it has to be right
my
or
body falls apart, and then somebody does something with my body. We haven't decided what to do with my body,
okay.
and then my consciousness leaves the body. Either it disappears in the body, or it leaves the body and has some kind of a short possible. I mean, I certainly believe there's something that happens with consciousness that's independent of the body, but I don't know that that's true. And it depends probably if you die in a sudden accident or you have 3 weeks to, kind of. It's really fun to stop, though. It's really fun to. Everybody stop. Just stop now.
Yeah.
Close your eyes and stop. It's so sweet, nothing goes away, but there's all this space inside of us when we stop. My children think that 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 when I stop like that, that I'm having a what's it called?
TIA.
No, worse than that.
Stroke.
No, not a
Oh.
stroke.
Seizure.
A seizure. Thank you, honey. A seizure. So now I have to take these seizure pills for 6 months because I might have had a seizure because I fell down 3 times 4 months ago, and I fell down 3 times about 3 months ago. But I didn't even get this thing till a couple of months ago. But anyway, they think there are all kinds of seizures, and so. But I think I stopped. You know, just I love it. Excuse me, it's rude. It's rude to do, but I realize I haven't stopped all day.
Well, that was one of your like workshops that you would teach at retreats is stop.
It's true.
STOP.
It's true. Go into the forest and stop. That's great, especially if you lie and look up at the trees going waving back and forth. But really stopping, just making stopping one of your practices, I think would make anybody happier. You know, nothing. 5 seconds of nothing.
So why don't we just take 5 seconds of nothing, maybe a few breaths together, and then Asha, if you feel up to it, we'll have some people ask some questions.
Cooler Rooney.
All right, let's take 3 breaths together. Really allowing the belly to be soft and expanding out, so you're drawing the air down into the bottoms of the lungs, then letting it fill up from the bottom up. One more breath. So, questions related to the story, to anything Asha's talked about today? I'd like to try to stay away from politics or things that aren't related to our conversation today. So I don't know if you heard me, but I said now's the time for questions. Somebody said they can't hear me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Asha? Hi.
Who is that?
Latifa Noor.
There's 4 pages.
It's okay. It's Latex.
Oh no, there you are. I see you. Hi.
Hi. I miss you so much, but I'm gonna ask my question.
I'm she and they too.
Um, I don't know. It's not related, but I want to ask you this question while I have it. How did you apply the things you were learning when you were opening your mind to your nursing, the part of your life when you were a nurse?
That is a really good question. I did not make my nurse. Now I'm thinking back. This was not a conscious at all. But when I put my body back into the person who was a nurse for 22 years, I, God, I don't even know if I did it. But there was somebody that I had named Mercy in a little kind of experience I had of imagining Mercy, the archetype coming down into me when I was in college and describing myself to my current boyfriend at that point. But when I think about myself working at UVA hospital with oncology patients, all of whom were there for a while and who were, sick people are so open to nurses because they know we care about them. Because most of us do. And God, it's just thinking back on how much I loved people when I was there. I didn't think about it because I was busy. I had 4 children. I had a lot of projects I was doing. So I think that what happened was that I pulled in that whole breadth of being into becoming a nurse because I had read a novel when I was a teenager after the war about somebody who had walked from Siberia back to France and found his family dead, but was a great writer and described all the people he'd encountered in the Himalayas and all the way coming across. And when I read that book, I thought to myself, well, when I get old, I want to become a nurse. Well, my father just laughed in my face because he didn't think I'd, well, he was a doctor and doctors were really snobby about nurses. So when I finally became a nurse, it was like a fulfillment of my biggest ambition. And I loved it until I got kind of bad at it. Not really bad, but mostly what was happening for me was when I would go into a room, I would feel, when I'm looking at each of you, for instance, right now, there's something that happens to me where I'm joining up whatever tiny amount of energy could possibly be coming off the computer. I mean, how much can, you know, so I look at somebody, there's Hillary. Hi, Hillary. So I look at Hillary who I have a whole history with, but I'm sitting there, I'm even talking about her, and then my heart starts, ah, and then I have to come back to this utter adoration for everybody who I can see. And then there are 4 pages of people I can't see. What do I do about that? You know, does it matter? Do we need to see each other and individualize ourselves, or can we be so loving that it's all okay and that we can trust that we don't have to learn to trust? I don't know whether that answered your question, Latifah Noor, but
It did. That was good. That was perfect.
thank you.
That was the perfect answer. I just wanted to ask you that. So I'm glad I got to ask it. Thank you very much, Asha. I love that answer.
Okay, good.
So maybe one or two more questions. Feeling. Yeah, Abraham.
Hi, Asha.
Hi, sweetie.
First, I just want to say you're 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 one of my most favorite human beings on the planet.
Wow.
And I want to ask you a question because it's a real question that I think you and I share, and probably many share. But here's the question. How do you, looking back at your life and your long and very full life, how do you feel that your experiences with LSD and psychedelics impacted the workings of your mind and your whole life experience?
So enormously. I've been reading about the fact that people, humans, way long ago, altered their mind sets. I mean, that's a kind of a mysterious subject. What happened to us to make us not just become practical or be able to make food or to feed and to, even make cities and get bigger and bigger? But what was it that made us, well, for example, I've fallen in love with the spiritual, but I've fallen in love with the spiritual, and now I see all of the clubs. I don't like the word clubs. I would rather say all of the variations of belief systems that people have for their spiritual life are just that. They're variations of belief systems. But the belief is an act of faith and love, falling into like the miraculous nature of the world. And what happened for me was the first thing I took was peyote. It's those pills, and I had experience I described already, but I also had experiences of beauty or looking at paintings where I could see depths and strange things, and I could feel myself as a I didn't know the word fascia, a one organ fashion with filled with nerves that were going all the time. But I was experiencing that taking the bus to somebody's art place and then looking at his paintings and seeing the depth of the paintings and looking at food and seeing gemstones and looking at some people who came in who were crazy and who had masks on, and we got him to take them off and then he put them back on. A lot of stuff like that, and a kind of a wisdom that came through directly. So then when I went on taking acid with Ram Dass and Steve every Friday night and Jane,
Mhm.
that was, well, I mean, it was so many different things. I mean, sometimes it was in the forest and God and nature were we were God and nature all one thing, or we were in a house and we were working on somebody's psychological problem, or but it was multi something, and basically I've come back into the human American English speaking world, which is perfectly all right. I don't need all those other things happening. I mean, they were interesting. I guess I was bored. I don't know why we do all the things we do. But I think for me, it was probably I had enough energy to do it, and I was curious. What is this? I'm still curious. And so now I'm in my physical body, I mean, what is this left ear about? I mean, this is all just a sound catcher. But we look at it, is it pretty? Is it big? And then we have all sorts of stories. Like, I have a Buddhist ear. Look how big my ear is. I was always sort of proud of that. Now I think, oh, well, Buddha's just another person. Every Buddha's just another person. Big deal. So
So
Yeah,
whatever.
Asha, Mershid used to say his secret was big ears.
Yeah.
so there's another question from Nahid.
Thank you, Asha.
If we know that we're dying in the near future, if we are given the gift of consciously experiencing the dying process, is it like spring in that the world is new, so many new lessons about life that we experience the last gift of life?
Well, where is this person?
It's Nahid, and let's
Oh, Nahid. Oh, my
yeah,
Nahid. Oh, I know her. Well, whatever, you know, whatever. I am, I mean, I don't know whether I'm dying in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Today, when I saw the doctor, he said you could live for 6 years. I don't think so. He doesn't think so because I'm too old. I'm 86. But people who have what I have, you know, have lived 6 to 10 years. But I had this great conversation today because I realized I think I'll just give up any speculations about what happens when you die. Whether you die, who cares? There's no way of knowing, and making choices just seems like it makes directions. I feel like what I learned to love everybody, to learn what loving everybody means in terms of my thoughts. All I know now is my feelings, right? I've got to begin to have thoughts besides just repeating it over and over again. And so that seems to be enough until I get that one done. It's big to have your whole body be a lover that is vibrating instead of, moving, or turning people on. It's just like turning yourself on so it's light enough so other people can feel light and then they can turn their own light on. That seems like more fun. Unless you're in love. Everybody loves to be in love.
So I'm thinking it's feeling like time to wrap it up. Will you play us out with bells?
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn my camera around again. So
Oh gosh, I hope you'll all come back
we're gonna
next month.
Yeah, hopefully we'll do it next month.
And if any of you are interested in my 40-day retreat book, this is not a commitment to buy it or anything like that, but if you would be interested in it, um,
Let me know.
if you would let me know, because if I knew that there were enough people interested in it, I would actually research it and see if I could get it. It has to be this big or you can't read it, but I think it can be done on cheaper paper with a cheaper
I'm gonna
thing.
take on taking those requests.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
also decks of cards. We might be printing more of the meditation cards. So if I'll be sending information out about all of this. So if you're interested, you can stand by and know that it's coming.
And if you can't afford it, you can say that too, because I don't care if I make money.
Thank you.
And remember to stop. And if you can, get other people to stop with you. Fine. Mhm. No, wait a minute. I want to look at every page.
Thank you, Asha.
Ah, thank you. Thank you.
Love you.
So much love. So sweet.
Thank you, Asha.
Oh,
Thank
there's
you,
the
Asha.
baby. There's
Love you, Asha.
Thank you, Asha.
Yes.
Thank you, Asha. Love you.
Thank you
Love you.
so much.
Bless,
Love you, Asha.
blessings, blessings. Thank you so much.
Love you, Marsha.
You're the beloved.
I love you, Asha, from Cheryl.
You guys are really doing good and putting out the love.
Yeah, yeah. You've taught us well.
Huh.
I don't think it's
Some
that
more.
Yeah.
Good instruction.
Yeah. Good. Great. All
So
right.
much love to you.
It's gonna be a
Thank
long
you.
month.
Lots of
Thank
love.
you, Asha.
Love you.
So much love.
Love, 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 love.
Love you, Asha.
Love you so much. Thank you.
Love
to
you,
everyone.
Asha.
Here I go.
Here
One.
you go.
Love you, Asha.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.